In life, we often find ourselves caught in an endless cycle of striving, pushing forward, trying to hold everything together. We feel that if we just work harder, think smarter, or pray longer, we'll somehow break through the walls that surround us. But this constant effort can become exhausting, leaving us drained, confused, and spiritually dry. The truth that many overlook is that breakthrough does not begin when we finally solve the problem. It begins the moment we surrender it to God. That surrender, that quiet and powerful release of control, is where transformation begins. Surrender is not a sign of weakness. It is the beginning of trust. It is the place where we stop saying, "I can do this on my own," and start saying, "God, I need you." In our modern world, we are taught to be independent, self-sufficient, and strong at all costs. But the spiritual truth is quite different. The greatest breakthroughs happen not through human strength, but through divine intervention. And that divine intervention only comes when we open the door through surrender. God does not force his way into our lives. He waits for an invitation, and surrender is that invitation. It tells God, "I trust your way more than mine. I believe in your timing more than my own plans. I am willing to let go even when I don't understand." That kind of surrender is not passive, it is deeply active. It is a bold declaration that we are shifting from self-reliance to God, dependence. When we surrender, we begin to see things differently. We no longer view our trials as punishments or our waiting as delay. Instead, we start to see them as moments of preparation, opportunities for God to shape us for something greater. Surrender clears away the noise, the anxiety, and the fear that cloud our spiritual vision. It makes room for clarity, for peace, and for grace to enter. Sometimes surrender happens in a single moment. Other times it is a daily choice to release our grip, to trust anew, to keep our hands open. And every time we surrender, something shifts, maybe not in the world around us immediately, but always within us. That shift within is where breakthrough truly begins. It is the moment we stop wrestling and start resting in God. We must remember that God's power is made perfect in weakness. So when we surrender our battles, we are not giving up, we are giving over. We are placing our hopes, our fears, our questions, and our future into hands that are infinitely wiser, stronger, and more loving than our own. That is not failure. It is faith in action. And it is in that sacred act of surrender that the journey to breakthrough truly begins. We often carry the silent burden of believing we must be strong at all times. Society teaches us to hide our weaknesses, to keep moving no matter how heavy the weight becomes. But in the spiritual life, it is precisely our weakness that becomes the place where God's strength is most visible. God does not wait for us to become perfect or polished before he acts. Instead, he steps into our imperfections, our weariness, and our limitations, and there he shows himself strong. There is something profoundly comforting about the truth that we do not need to have it all together to receive God's help. When we are tired, when we are broken, when we are at the end of our strength, that is when God is most near. His strength is not dependent on our condition. He is not impressed by how much we can carry. He is drawn to our humility, to our openness, to our honest admission that we can't do it without him. It is in our weakness that we become truly aware of our need for God. If we are always relying on our own abilities, we leave little room for grace to work. But when we admit that we are weak, we make space for God's power to be made perfect. This is not about giving up. It is about giving in to the presence of a God who desires to carry what we were never meant to bear alone. There is a deep spiritual paradox here. When we are weak, then we are strong, not by human standards, but because in our surrender God lifts us. In our exhaustion, He renews us. In our confusion, He becomes our clarity. His strength does not simply replace ours. It fills in the gaps, strengthens what is broken, and empowers us in ways we could never achieve on our own. He takes what is fragile and makes it firm. We must also understand that weakness is not a flaw in our faith. It is often the doorway to deeper intimacy with God. When we stop trying to impress God with our strength and begin to approach Him with our honesty, He responds with mercy and power. This kind of relationship changes us. It reorients our hearts from performance to presence, from pressure to peace. We begin to live not from a place of striving, but from a place of being held. So when you find yourself feeling weak, don't run from it. Bring it to God. Lay it before Him without fear, without shame. He is not surprised by your need. He is waiting to meet it. Let His strength hold you, shape you, and guide you. In the eyes of the world, weakness may be seen as failure, but in the eyes of God, it is often the first step to transformation. His grace is not just enough, it is more than enough, and it meets us exactly where we are. Faith is often misunderstood as a formula, something that can be unlocked through the right words, repeated prayers, or outward displays of devotion. But faith is not a set of rituals or a checklist of spiritual duties. It is a living, breathing relationship with God. It is the ongoing conversation between the Creator and the one He created. When we see faith only as a method to get what we want, we miss the beauty of what it truly is, a journey of trust, intimacy, and surrender. At its core, faith is about knowing God, not just knowing about Him, but actually knowing Him, walking with Him, and allowing His presence to shape our lives. This relationship is not built on perfection or performance, but on honesty, humility, and a willingness to be led. God does not ask us to come to Him with everything figured out. He invites us to come as we are, broken, uncertain, and in need of His love. Like any relationship, faith grows through time spent together. It is in the quiet moments, the whispered prayers, the cries for help, and the words of gratitude that we draw closer to God. This is not about eloquence in prayer or theological knowledge. It's about the heart. God is not moved by how well we speak. He is moved by our sincerity. When we approach Him honestly, when we open ourselves without pretending, He draws near. A relationship with God is also marked by trust, especially when we don't understand what He is doing. There will be times when our prayers seem unanswered, when the path ahead is unclear, or when pain clouds our vision. These are the moments when we learn what faith truly means. It is easy to trust when things are going well. Real faith is choosing to believe when the evidence is missing, when the answers are delayed, and when silence is all we hear. In these moments, we are not called to figure it all out. We are called to remain in relationship. We must also remember that God desires more than just our requests. He desires our hearts. He wants to walk with us through every season, to be included in our decisions, our joys, our sorrows. Faith is not a transaction. It is communion. It is waking up each day and saying, God, I am yours. Lead me, teach me, stay close. This relationship changes us. It softens us, strengthens us, and teaches us to see the world through eyes of grace and hope. When we live by faith as relationship, we begin to experience the fullness of what God intended. We stop striving to earn love and start resting in the love already given. We stop chasing blessings and start walking with the one who blesses. And in that walk, in that closeness, we find peace that surpasses understanding and joy that no circumstance can steal. That is the power of faith, not as a formula, but as a daily, intimate, growing relationship with the living God. One of the most challenging aspects of faith is letting go of our expectations. We come to God with ideas about how things should unfold, what blessings should look like, how quickly they should come, and the exact form our prayers should take. But the reality is, God's ways are higher than ours, and His answers often look very different from what we imagined. Breakthrough, in the spiritual sense, is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's subtle, and very often it is not external at all, but deeply internal. We must learn to trust that breakthrough is not defined by what the world applauds. It is not always about financial success, healing on demand, or immediate restoration. Sometimes breakthrough is a shift in mindset. It is the moment when bitterness turns to forgiveness, when despair gives way to hope, when restlessness is replaced by peace. It is the unseen movement of the soul aligning more closely with the will and heart of God. God does not waste anything, not our waiting, not our pain, not even our confusion. Every season has a purpose, and every struggle can be transformed. But this transformation rarely happens according to our timeline or expectations. We may ask for the mountain to move, but God may instead give us the strength to climb it. We may ask for the storm to stop, but God may instead teach us how to find peace within it. This is still breakthrough. It is just deeper and more lasting than anything material. Often we measure breakthrough by change in circumstance, but God measures it by change in character. While we are focused on what is happening around us, He is focused on what is happening within us. He is forming patience where we once demanded answers, growing compassion where there was once judgment, and building resilience in the very places we once felt defeated. This kind of breakthrough is sacred because it cannot be taken away. It is not dependent on outcomes. It is rooted in who we are becoming in Christ. In learning to accept that breakthrough may not look the way we expect, we also learn to appreciate the small victories. A day without anxiety, a moment of clarity, a decision made in faith instead of fear. These moments may seem small, but they are monumental in God's eyes. They are signs of growth, evidence of grace, and proof that He is working in us. The journey of faith invites us to release our desire to control the process and embrace the mystery of God's plan. This requires humility and trust. It requires us to believe that even when we do not see the full picture, God is still painting something beautiful. When we accept that breakthrough comes in many forms, we become more grateful, more patient, and more aware of God's presence in our daily lives. In doing so, we position ourselves to receive not just what we want, but what we truly need. In our moments of deepest sorrow, when words fail and silence surrounds us, it can feel as though no one sees, no one hears, and no one understands. Yet the truth is, God is especially close to us in those very moments. He is near to the broken-hearted, not distant, not indifferent, but present. His presence does not always come with thunder or grand signs, but in the gentle assurance that you are not alone. He is with you in the silence, in the tears, in the ache that words cannot express. There is something profoundly tender about the way God moves toward those who are suffering. Unlike the world, which often turns away from pain or grows uncomfortable with it, God steps in. He is not repelled by your wounds, He is drawn to them. Scripture reminds us that every tear we shed is seen and remembered. Nothing about your pain is hidden from Him. He understands your grief, your questions, your fears, because He carries them with you. When we are broken, we often feel weak, even ashamed. We wonder if our faith is failing, or if we are somehow letting God down by feeling sorrow or doubt. But God does not rebuke the broken-hearted. He blesses them. He comforts them. He lifts them up not because they are strong, but because they are willing to lean on Him. There is no shame in being broken before God. In fact, that is where some of the most powerful healing begins. Many times in the quiet of our suffering, God speaks most clearly. When the noise of the world fades and all that remains is our need for Him, we are finally able to listen. And what we hear is not condemnation, but compassion. Not demands, but gentle invitations. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. This rest is not just physical, it is spiritual. It is the kind of rest that reaches the deepest places of the soul. God is not waiting for you to pull yourself together before He responds. He is not holding back until you prove yourself. He is already beside you, already offering comfort, already holding you in His hand. When you bring your brokenness to Him, you are not a burden, you are beloved. His heart aches with yours, and His grace meets you exactly where you are. This closeness of God in suffering changes everything. It reminds us that we are never truly alone, even when others don't understand. It teaches us that healing is not always immediate, but it is always beginning. And it assures us that even in the darkest night, there is a light that cannot be extinguished, the light of God's love, faithfully shining, patiently waiting, always near. His nearness is not a reward for the perfect, but a gift for the broken, and it is in this gift that we find our true source of hope. There comes a point in every struggle where we must make a decision, continue fighting with our own limited strength, or hand the battle over to God. This is one of the most difficult steps in faith, not because God is unwilling to help, but because our human nature is deeply conditioned to rely on our own efforts. We want control. We want to fix things ourselves. But the truth is, there are battles in life that cannot be won through willpower, strategy, or strength alone. These are the battles that require divine intervention, and they can only be won when we give them fully to God. Giving a battle to God does not mean giving up. It means recognizing that the outcome no longer rests on our shoulders, but in the hands of the one who sees beyond what we can see. It means stepping out of the way so that God can move. It is a shift in posture, from clenched fists to open hands, from worry to trust, from panic to prayer. This surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is understanding that God has already won the ultimate battle, and that our victory is found in aligning with Him, not in pushing through by ourselves. Too often we wait until we are completely exhausted before turning to God. We try everything, we analyze, we plan, we react, only to find ourselves overwhelmed and disheartened. But God is not our last resort. He is our first line of defense. The moment we choose to bring the battle to Him, we invite His power, His timing, and His wisdom into the situation. And where God is invited, breakthrough is possible. There is freedom in releasing control. When we give the battle to God, we stop obsessing over outcomes. We no longer need to manipulate, force, or worry. Instead, we begin to rest in the assurance that God is working, even when we cannot see it. His hand moves quietly but powerfully. He orchestrates details we didn't even consider, and His solutions are often far greater than anything we could have planned. Sometimes the act of giving the battle to God is as simple as a prayer. Lord, I can't do this, but You can. Other times it is a daily decision to stop picking the battle back up again. We must resist the urge to reclaim control after we've surrendered it. Trust requires patience. It requires belief that God is for us, not against us, and that His ways, even when hidden, are always leading us toward what is best. In the end, the victory that comes from God is not just about changed circumstances. It's about transformed heart. It's about growing in dependence, deepening in faith, and becoming people who are no longer defined by struggle, but by surrender. When we let God fight for us, we begin to understand what true strength is, not the ability to carry everything alone, but the humility to give everything to Him. That is where real breakthrough is born,